When my son's new family told me there was no room for me anymore, I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just stood there in the kitchen, holding a dish towel, and nodded slowly like I understood. Maybe I did understand. Maybe I'd seen it coming for longer than I wanted to admit. But understanding something and being ready for it are two very different things. And I wasn't ready. Not even close. My name is Dorothy, though most people call me Dottie. I'm 68 years old now, and I've lived what I thought was a good life. Not perfect, but good. I raised my son Michael by myself after his father passed when Michael was only 7. Heart attack. One day he was here, laughing at the breakfast table, and the next day he was gone. Just like that. Life doesn't give you warnings, I learned that early. So I did what any mother would do. I worked 2 jobs, kept food on the table, made sure Michael had everything he needed. I went to every baseball game, every school concert, every parent-teacher meeting. I was there. Always there. Michael grew up to be a wonderful man. Kind, hardworking, thoughtful. He got a good job as an accountant, bought his own place, and I was so proud. So incredibly proud. When he met Jennifer, I thought my heart would burst with happiness. She was lovely. Blonde hair, bright smile, polite. She called me Mrs. Patterson at first, and I told her to please call me Dottie. We had lunch together a few times before the wedding, and she seemed sweet. Maybe a little quiet, a little reserved, but I figured she was just shy. I wanted to love her. I was ready to love her. They got married 5 years ago in a beautiful ceremony by the lake. I wore a pale blue dress and cried happy tears when I watched them say their vows. Michael looked at Jennifer like she hung the moon, and I thought, this is it. This is what I worked for. To see my boy happy and settled. To know he found someone to love. I danced with him at the reception, and he whispered in my ear, "Thanks for everything, Mom. I wouldn't be here without you." I held on to those words like a treasure. For the first year or so, things were good. Michael and Jennifer lived about 20 minutes away, and I'd see them every couple of weeks. Sunday dinners, mostly. I'd make pot roast or chicken casserole, and we'd sit around my little dining table and talk about their week. Jennifer didn't say much, but she smiled and nodded, and I thought that was just her way. Some people are listeners, not talkers. I respected that. I tried not to ask too many questions, tried not to pry. I wanted to be the kind of mother-in-law who didn't interfere, who gave them space to build their own life. Then Jennifer got pregnant. Oh, the joy that brought. Michael called me on a Tuesday evening, practically shouting through the phone. "Mom, we're having a baby." I screamed right back, and we laughed together like 2 silly people. I went over to their house that weekend with a bag full of baby books and a little stuffed lamb I'd found at the store. Jennifer thanked me quietly, set the books aside, and didn't open them while I was there. I told myself she was just tired. Pregnancy is exhausting, I remembered that from carrying Michael. When little Emma was born, I fell in love all over again. She was perfect. Tiny fingers, rosebud mouth, soft dark hair like Michael's. I went to the hospital the day after she was born, brought flowers and a balloon. I held Emma in my arms and felt like my heart had grown 3 sizes. I was a grandmother. Me. Dottie Patterson, who'd struggled and worked and worried, now had this beautiful little soul to love. I kissed her forehead and whispered, "I'm your grandma, sweet girl. I'm going to love you forever." Those first few months, I tried to help. I really did. I'd call and ask if they needed anything. Diapers, groceries, a meal dropped off. Sometimes Jennifer said yes, sometimes no. I didn't push. I'd learned long ago that new mothers need to find their own rhythm. But I wanted to be useful. I wanted to be part of Emma's life. So I'd visit once a week, usually on Saturday mornings. I'd bring muffins or a casserole, hold Emma while Jennifer rested, fold some laundry if it was piled up. I tried to be helpful without being intrusive. But something started to shift. I couldn't put my finger on it exactly, but there was a coolness that crept into the air. Jennifer's smiles became a little tighter. Her thank yous a little shorter. When I'd offer to babysit, she'd say they were fine, they had it handled. When I suggested a little outing to the park with Emma, she'd say Emma was napping or not feeling well. I told myself I was imagining things. That I was being oversensitive. But mothers know. We feel things in our bones. One Saturday, I showed up with a bag of groceries and my key to their house, the one Michael had given me for emergencies. I knocked first, always knocked, but when no one answered I used the key. I walked into the kitchen and found Jennifer sitting at the table, staring at her phone. She looked up, and her face went pale, then red. "Dottie, you can't just walk in here," she said, her voice sharp. I froze. "I'm sorry, I knocked, and I thought maybe you were upstairs with Emma. I brought some things." I held up the grocery bag like proof of my good intentions. She stood up, took the bag from me, and set it on the counter. "I appreciate it, but we need boundaries. This is our home." Her words were polite, but her eyes were cold. I felt like I'd been slapped. "Of course," I said quietly. "I didn't mean to intrude. I just wanted to help." She nodded but didn't smile. "I know. But we're fine. We don't need help right now." I left quickly, my face hot with embarrassment. I sat in my car for 10 minutes before I could drive, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. I called Michael that night. I didn't want to complain, didn't want to cause trouble, but I needed to understand. "Honey, did I do something wrong?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He sighed. "Mom, Jennifer just needs her space. She's still adjusting to being a mom, and sometimes she feels like people are hovering." Hovering. That word stung. I wasn't hovering, Michael. I was just trying to help. He was quiet for a moment. "I know, Mom. But maybe ease up a little, okay? Give her some room to breathe." I did. I eased up. I stopped visiting every week. I called less. I waited for them to reach out to me. Days turned into weeks, and the phone stayed silent. I told myself they were busy, that new parents are overwhelmed, that this was normal. But it didn't feel normal. It felt like I was being erased, slowly, carefully, like pencil marks on paper. Then Michael called one evening, his voice excited. "Mom, we're moving. We found a bigger place, closer to Jennifer's parents. It's got a yard for Emma, an extra bedroom, it's perfect." My heart sank, but I forced brightness into my voice. "That's wonderful, honey. I'm so happy for you. Closer to Jennifer's parents. Farther from me." He didn't say that part, but I heard it anyway. They moved 3 months later. The new house was 45 minutes away, not 20. I helped them move, carried boxes, organized the kitchen, played with Emma while they unpacked. Jennifer's parents were there too. Her mother, Linda, was a tall, elegant woman who spoke in a polite, clipped way. Her father, Richard, barely looked at me. They took charge of everything, directing where furniture should go, what should be unpacked first. I felt like a guest in my own son's life. At the end of the day, we all stood in the living room, exhausted and dusty. Linda suggested we order pizza, and everyone agreed. We sat around their new dining table, and I listened as Linda and Jennifer talked about decorating ideas, about enrolling Emma in a toddler class near Linda's house, about weekend plans. Michael nodded along, and I realized I wasn't part of the conversation. I was just there, taking up space. After that, my visits became rare. I'd ask to come over, and Michael would say, "Let me check with Jennifer." Sometimes he'd call back and say this weekend wasn't good, maybe next time. Next time would come, and the same thing would happen. I started to feel like I needed an appointment to see my own son. To see my granddaughter. Emma's second birthday came, and I wasn't invited to the party. I found out about it afterward when Michael posted pictures online. There was Emma in a little pink dress, smiling in front of a cake shaped like a butterfly. There were balloons, decorations, family and friends gathered around. Linda and Richard were in several photos, holding Emma, laughing. I stared at those pictures for a long time, feeling something crack inside my chest. I called Michael, my voice shaking. Why wasn't I invited to Emma's party? He was quiet. Then, Mom, it was just a small thing. Jennifer's family and a few friends. We didn't want it to be overwhelming. Overwhelming. For who? For Emma, who was 2 years old and wouldn't have noticed one more grandmother. Or for Jennifer, who clearly didn't want me there. I didn't say that. I swallowed it down and said, I understand. Maybe next time. But I didn't understand. And I was starting to think there wouldn't be a next time. Months passed. I saw Emma 3 times that whole year. 3 times. I'd send little gifts for holidays, cards for special occasions. Sometimes Michael would send a thank you text, sometimes not. I started to wonder if they even gave Emma the things I sent. I imagined them sitting in a closet somewhere, unopened, unwanted. I tried to fill my days with other things. I volunteered at the library, joined a book club, took walks in the park. But there was an emptiness that followed me everywhere. I'd see other grandmothers with their grandchildren, holding little hands, pushing swings, and I'd have to look away. That should have been me. That was supposed to be me. Then, one cold November afternoon, Michael called. Mom, can you come over this Saturday? We need to talk. My stomach dropped. Those words. We need to talk. Nothing good ever followed those words. But I said yes, of course I said yes. I drove to their house that Saturday with my hands gripping the wheel too tight. I'd barely slept the night before, running through every possible scenario in my mind. Maybe they were moving again. Maybe something was wrong with Emma. Maybe Michael was sick. I parked in their driveway and sat there for a moment, trying to calm my racing heart. Jennifer answered the door. She didn't smile. Come in, Dottie. I followed her into the living room where Michael was sitting on the couch, his hands clasped together. Emma was nowhere in sight. Probably napping, I thought. Or maybe at Linda's house. I sat down in the armchair across from them, and the silence stretched out like a thin wire. Finally, Michael spoke. Mom, this isn't easy to say. My heart was pounding. He looked at Jennifer, and she gave him a small nod. He continued, We've been talking, and we think it's best if you take a step back for a while. Take a step back. I stared at him. What does that mean? My voice came out smaller than I intended. Jennifer leaned forward, her face serious. It means we need space, Dottie. We need to focus on our family, on raising Emma in a stable, consistent environment. And we feel like your visits have become disruptive. Disruptive. That word landed like a stone in my chest. How have I been disruptive? I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. I barely see you anymore. I barely see Emma. Jennifer's jaw tightened. Exactly. And when you do come, it's emotional. You get upset if Emma doesn't remember you, or if she doesn't want to come to you right away. It's hard on her. I felt tears burning behind my eyes, but I blinked them back. She's my granddaughter. I just want to be part of her life. Michael shook his head. Mom, you are part of her life. But you need to respect our boundaries. Jennifer and I are her parents. We make the decisions. And right now, we're asking you to give us space. I looked at my son, this man I'd raised, this boy I'd sacrificed everything for, and I didn't recognize him. How much space? I whispered. Jennifer answered. We'll reach out when we're ready. Maybe in a few months. Maybe longer. We just need time. I stood up. My legs felt weak, but I managed to stay upright. Is this what you want, Michael? I looked right at him, searching his face for some sign of the boy who used to hug me tight and tell me I was the best mom in the world. He looked away. It's what we both want, Mom. I nodded slowly. Okay. If that's what you want. I walked to the door, and neither of them followed me. I let myself out, got into my car, and drove home in a fog. I don't remember the drive. I just remember sitting in my driveway, staring at my house, and thinking, this is it. This is how it ends. Weeks went by. Then months. I didn't hear from Michael. I didn't hear from Jennifer. I stopped sending gifts because I didn't know if they'd be thrown away. I stopped calling because no one answered. I stopped looking at pictures online because it hurt too much to see Emma growing up without me. I spent Christmas alone that year. I made a small turkey, set the table for one, and ate in silence. I thought about calling Michael, but I didn't. I thought about showing up at their house, but I didn't do that either. I respected their boundaries, just like they asked. Even though it was killing me. One night, I was lying in bed, unable to sleep, when my phone buzzed. A text from Michael. Mom, we're having another baby. Thought you should know. That was it. No warmth, no excitement, no invitation to be part of it. Just a notification, like I was some distant relative who needed to be informed out of politeness. I typed back, congratulations, honey. I'm so happy for you. I wasn't sure if I meant it. I wanted to mean it. But mostly I just felt numb. The new baby, a boy named Jacob, was born in the spring. I found out from a Facebook post. There he was, tiny and red-faced, wrapped in a blue blanket. Michael and Jennifer smiling. Emma holding her new brother, looking proud. Linda and Richard in the background. And me, not there. Not even mentioned. I sent a card with a check inside. I didn't get a thank you. I didn't expect one. More time passed. A year, then two. I built a life without them. I had to. I couldn't spend every day mourning what I'd lost. I traveled a little, took a trip to the mountains with my book club. I started painting, something I'd always wanted to try. I made new friends at the senior center. I kept busy. But there was always an ache, a hollow space where my family used to be. Then, 3 years after that conversation in their living room, my phone rang. It was Michael. I almost didn't answer. But I did. Hello? My voice was cautious. Mom. He sounded different. Tired. Can I come see you? I hesitated. Part of me wanted to say no, to protect myself from more hurt. But he was still my son. Yes. Of course. He came over that evening. He looked older, lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before. We sat at my kitchen table, the same table where we'd eaten so many meals together when he was growing up. He stared at his hands for a long time before he spoke. I'm sorry, Mom. His voice cracked. I'm so sorry. I didn't say anything. I just waited. He continued, I let Jennifer push you out. I told myself it was for the best, that we needed space, that you were being too much. But you weren't. You were just being a grandmother. And I took that away from you." Tears were streaming down his face now. I felt my own eyes fill, but I stayed quiet. He went on, "Jennifer and I have been having problems. She's very controlling, Mom. About everything. The kids, the house, our life. And I've been going along with it because I thought that's what a good husband does. But I've been miserable. And I've been thinking about you, about how we treated you, and I can't live with it anymore." I reached across the table and took his hand. "Michael, why didn't you tell me?" He shook his head. "I was ashamed. I didn't want to admit that I'd made a mistake. That I'd chosen her over you." We sat there together, crying, holding hands like we used to when he was small and scared of thunderstorms. He told me that Jennifer wanted a separation. That she'd been talking to a lawyer. That she wanted full custody of the kids and was planning to move closer to her parents. He was devastated, lost, and finally seeing everything clearly. "I need you, Mom," he whispered. "I need my mom." And just like that, I was needed again. We started to rebuild. Slowly, carefully. He brought the kids to visit, first just for an afternoon, then for weekends. Emma didn't remember me at first, but children are resilient. She warmed up, started calling me Grandma again. Jacob was shy, clinging to Michael's leg, but eventually he let me hold him, read him stories. Jennifer was furious when she found out. She accused Michael of betraying her, of turning the kids against her by bringing them to me. But Michael stood firm. "They deserve to know their grandmother," he told her. And he meant it. The divorce was messy and painful. Jennifer fought for everything, made accusations, tried to paint Michael as unstable. But in the end, they got joint custody. The kids would spend half their time with each parent. And when they were with Michael, I got to be part of their lives. It wasn't perfect. There were awkward moments, hard conversations, times when Emma asked why Grandma Linda saw them more than I did. But we worked through it. Michael apologized over and over, and eventually I told him he didn't need to anymore. We couldn't change the past. We could only move forward. I learned things about myself during those years of isolation. I learned that I was stronger than I thought. That I could survive being cut off from the people I loved most. That I could build a life even when my heart was broken. But I also learned that forgiveness is powerful. That holding on to anger and hurt only weighs you down. Michael is different now. More present, more aware. He asks my opinion about things, includes me in decisions about the kids. He calls just to talk, not because he needs something. We have Sunday dinners again, at my house, and it feels like coming home. Emma is 8 now, bright and funny and full of questions. Jacob is 5, sweet and gentle and obsessed with dinosaurs. They run through my house, leaving toys scattered and laughter echoing, and I've never been happier to clean up messes. Jennifer and I don't speak. I've accepted that. She has her life, her relationship with the kids, and I have mine. It's not ideal, but it works. I don't hold anger toward her anymore. I think she was scared, wanting to protect her family in the only way she knew how. It wasn't right, but I understand fear. We all make mistakes when we're afraid. Looking back, I see now that I lost those years with Emma and Jacob, and I can't get them back. I missed Emma's first day of school, Jacob's first words, countless moments that grandmothers are supposed to witness. That grief lives in me still, a quiet sadness that surfaces sometimes when I'm alone. But I also gained something. I gained perspective. I learned that love isn't about being needed every day or being the center of someone's world. It's about showing up when you can, being there when the door finally opens, and not letting bitterness poison what's left. I learned that family is complicated, messy, imperfect. That people hurt each other, sometimes on purpose, sometimes by accident. That relationships require constant work, communication, and the willingness to forgive. I learned that being pushed away doesn't mean you stop loving. It just means you love from a distance, quietly, patiently, waiting for the chance to love out loud again. And I learned that it's never too late. Even when it feels like everything is broken beyond repair, there's always a chance for healing. It might not look the way you imagined. It might not erase the pain. But it's something. And something is better than nothing. These days, I keep my expectations gentle. I don't assume I'll be invited to every event or included in every decision. I'm grateful for what I have, for the time I get, for the hugs and the stories and the crayon drawings that Emma tapes to my refrigerator. I'm 68 years old, and I've learned that life doesn't follow a script. You can do everything right, love with your whole heart, sacrifice everything, and still end up alone in your kitchen, wondering where it all went wrong. But you can also find your way back. Not to the way things were, but to something new. Something different. Maybe even something better. When Emma asks me about the years we didn't see each other, I tell her the truth in a way she can understand. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, sweetheart. And sometimes it takes a while to fix them. But the important thing is that we're together now. She nods, satisfied with that answer, and goes back to playing. I think about the day Jennifer told me to take a step back, the day Michael said it was what they both wanted. I think about how small I felt, how invisible. And then I think about last Sunday, when Jacob climbed into my lap and asked me to read him a story about dinosaurs for the third time. How Michael smiled at me from across the room, a real smile, full of warmth and gratitude. How Emma helped me bake cookies and told me I was the best grandma in the world. It wasn't a straight path from there to here. It was winding, painful, full of setbacks and tears and moments when I wanted to give up. But I didn't give up. And neither did Michael. We found our way back to each other, back to something that feels like family again. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe Jennifer will soften someday, maybe she won't. Maybe the kids will grow up and drift away, busy with their own lives. Maybe I'll have more years with them, or maybe just a few. I can't control any of that. What I can control is how I show up. With love, without demands. With presence, without expectations. With forgiveness, without forgetting. Because at the end of the day, that's all any of us can do. We can choose to love, even when it's hard. We can choose to stay open, even when we've been hurt. We can choose to believe that people can change, that relationships can heal, that lost time doesn't have to mean lost forever. I'm Dottie Patterson, and I'm a grandmother. Not in the way I planned, not with the ease I hoped for. But I'm here. I'm present. I'm part of their lives again. And that's enough. It has to be enough. Because the alternative, holding on to the pain and the anger and the years I lost, that would destroy me. And I didn't survive everything I survived just to let bitterness win. So I choose this. I choose the messy, complicated, imperfect version of family that we've built from the ruins of what we had before. I choose Sunday dinners and bedtime stories and crayon drawings on my refrigerator. I choose forgiveness and patience and hope. And on the hard days, when the memories of being pushed away surface and the hurt feels fresh again, I remind myself of something simple. Something true. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love endures. And I'm still here, loving them, waiting with open arms for every moment they'll give me. Because that's what mothers do. That's what grandmothers do. We love, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. That's the lesson I've learned, written in heartache and healing. Family isn't about being perfect. It's about being present, being willing, being open to the possibility that broken things can be mended. Not perfectly. Never perfectly. But mended enough to hold love again. And that's a kind of beautiful all its own.